Hello everyone, and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to be all about the Blessed Bloodline event, which ends today in Dragalia Lost. This event has been running for about a week or so, and we've now just switched over to our new event, Time War in Torment, a raid, which marks the return of Wukong to the game. I wanted to talk about Blessed Bloodline because I think it has some interesting story implications, and as always, when new events release, I do like to make a video just to show off some gameplay of it and talk about the story. So that is the plan for today. We're going to play through this EX battle where we use the dragon in each wave, and then we'll also take a couple cracks at the Astral Ciella battle as well, which is new to this particular onslaught event. As far as the story goes for Blessed Bloodline, it centers around Tobias and Nino, as well as, to a lesser extent, Rosarda and Raphael. The premise of the story is that a clergyman or priest known as Saunier, who is a caretaker for Nino, who's hidden away, ends up dying at the beginning of the story. In his dying words and his dying message to Tobias, he tells him that he needs to follow a map or clues of sorts and use something to unlock this hidden refuge in which Nino resides. Apparently, Nino has been sheltered away there, as have her ancestors, as part of this lineage council since the old days of the Ilian faith, and when there was a split about whether the successors to the faith should be those who are descendants of Ilian or those who are not. And so apparently she claims to descend from Ilian, or as we find out, she actually makes clear that her ancestors actually know that it's not the true Ilian, it's the woman who claimed to be Ilian, who is Mine, a fairy who cut her wings after Ilian herself was ushered off into the other world. So it's really interesting stuff as relates to the first war of binding in a way. It's funny because some of these questions I've talked about in discussion videos over on Straight Lace's channel, so I will card out to those if you haven't heard them. But I didn't think we'd actually have to get into the topic of fairy ancestry. This was not something I really expected to come up, but I'm pretty sure in one of those discussions we talked about, like, well, if a fairy cuts off their wings, can they actually have children and they're human sized forever, but can they actually have descendants? Are there descendants of Mine? And apparently the answer is yes, and that is actually a space that the game ended up exploring. So Nino is the descendant of Mine, and therefore she does sort of have some of her fairy powers, and Mine is able to sort of speak to her in this kind of omnipresent voice, as well as speak to Tobias. And the rest of the story sort of centers around different parties, such as the Predationists, Conservatives, chasing after and trying to basically trying to capture her or kidnap her, and for different reasons. So for one, the Conservatives think that she's sort of a heretic, claiming to have this ancestry that is so sacred, and that's why they want to get rid of her. The Predationists actually see her as a key to unlocking information or access to more about the Scrolls of Perdition. I believe that's what it is, or maybe it's just unlocking the other world as a whole. A little bit of that was lost on me, but basically they want to sacrifice her as part of a rite or ritual. And then we also have the northern branch of the Grastian Church, or the Ilian Church in North Grastia, which just sort of wants to bring her to the north for safety, but also as kind of like a means of uniting different branches of the church, so almost like a political use for her as kind of a bargaining chip or as a symbol. So it's really interesting to see these different parties come together. And Tobias, we also get more about him since he's never really starred on his own event proper. So Tobias, of course, he has his own interpretation of the faith, which is about the pursuit of happiness and well-being for all. And so he wants to protect Nino, and apparently this protector was anticipated in the past because Nino has special armor or relic that ends up being armor for Tobias as kind of her protector for a while. It basically unfolds in kind of a somewhat expected way, I would say. The parties clash at different points. Raphael, Rosarda, and Tobias are all able to kind of rescue Nino, but ultimately, this is her first time outside of the secluded place in which she was raised, and so her dream, her desire in life is to explore the world. And so at the very end, when all of the different parties are fended off, she has a choice of going north with Raphael and Rosarda, or going to the Halidom with Tobias. Both of those are places where she'll be safe. But she ends up choosing her own path to kind of wander the earth, travel, see the world. And I guess that's where the horse in her portrait comes from. But pretty cool outcome. Honestly, did kind of catch me off guard a little bit. Like, they set it up by explaining at first that Rosarda and Raphael, that she had chosen not to go with them. And then a few sentences in, they say, yeah, but we're surprised she didn't go with Tobias either. And then they show her kind of on her journey, and Tobias reflecting on what happened as well. So overall, pretty good story. I feel like I have some catching up to do on some of the church arc stories that I haven't read through as far as adventure stories. I also have not read through Tobias's or Nino's just yet, so I want to see if Mine actually explicitly appears in those in some way. It's very interesting that her disembodied voice is present so far in the future, so I am curious about that. But overall, enjoyed this one. I don't have a lot to say as far as like the deeper lore implications of it, but it was a fun one. Liked Nino, liked Tobias, and this is probably the most I've enjoyed Tobias so far, I would say. So when he first came out, I don't think I was as familiar with Ellie's stories, so he wasn't a character I immediately knew and recognized, and to see him get his own event is pretty cool. There we go with our second KO on Astral Ciella, just for some extra points. As far as the gameplay of this event, pretty similar to your standard onslaught events, but I do like the choice of the Astral Agito, especially Ciella, because of Ciella's relationship to the church. Obviously, I think it's a nice little nod to have her here. A lot of times the astral bosses are totally disconnected from what's going on, but in this case, there's a little bit of a connection, and I kind of appreciated that. I guess this means we have another 4 onslaught events to go through where they'll proceed through these astral bosses. I think it was also kind of nice, this event, just to fit Raphael into the story, just to make sure that everybody kind of has seen her in some way other than her summon showcase, because we still have Asura coming as our next Sinister Dominion boss, so presumably Raphael will be the one transforming into Azura, or Otherworld Raphael will be. Anyway though, I think that is going to do it for today. Just going to collect some of these rewards. That is pretty much it for this event. I hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know what your thoughts were in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you as always for watching, everyone. Story reaction coming soon, since that's going to be dropping tomorrow. Otherwise, take care, and I'll see you next time.